All right. Thanks everyone online for your patience as we get started here in person. I was telling Steve on the way in, I literally hit every red light imaginable. I thought it was my lucky day apparently. So, um, hope everyone's enjoying the bit of sunshine we've been getting these past couple of days, given the weather going on. It's been very wet, very rainy. So hope everyone's gotten a chance to get outside, enjoy the beautiful weather we've been getting. But with all that said, we'll go ahead and get started and call to order. I believe we do have quorum today. Uh, we've established quorum as far as introductions. I believe everyone knows each other. And as far as Erin joining us today, she'll have an opportunity to further introduce herself to go along with some of the materials that were sent in advance. Yeah, sure. You are so right, Melissa. So yeah, let's do introductions then. And we could go ahead and get started with Mary. We'll start Mary on your side of the table if you don't mind kicking us off, and we will, just who you are and how long you've been on COA and the area that you represent. I think should be the three we hit on today.
Hi, I'm Mary Duran. I have been on the COA about a year, I believe, and I service El Paso and Teller County. Do you want me to?
Hi, I'm Erin Marizella. I'm the Executive Director of Innovations in Aging, and I'm joining today.
And I'm Melissa Martz. I work for the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging, and I am the administrator for the Pikes Peak Commission on Aging.
My name is Steve Petersman. I'm the CEO of Porchlight Health, and I represent El Paso County.
Afternoon, all. Dayton Romero. I've been on the COA for almost a year now, and I represent Colorado Springs.
Good afternoon, all. Jody Barker here, Director of the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone here in person, and I think we'll go ahead and go over to online virtually, and I will kind of just go down what I see here on the monitor best I can. And Amy, if you don't mind kicking us off, Amy Smith, please.
Hi, I'm Amy Smith. This is my first time being here. I'm very excited to be a part of it and seeing where I kind of fit in, where I'm going to be able to help the most. But I'm very excited.
Thank you for joining us today, Amy. And we'll move right next to you, Amy Smith, on the screen. Amy Mitchell, if you don't mind, please. Thank you.
Amy Mitchell, Park County Commissioner. And I don't know how long I've been on the board. I think almost 2 years, whenever we started. So it's, and I am the vice chair. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Amy. You are an amazing vice chair, by the way. So thank you. Kathy, if you don't mind going.
Sure. I'm Kathy Sorello Smith, and I've been on your board for, gosh, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months. But I'm also on the state commission. And I represent Colorado Springs, El Paso County.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate it. And Laura.
Laura had mentioned in the chat that she was having technical problems being able to unmute herself. But I can at least give a little bit. Laura Cronick, she's a member of the city council or town council, I believe, for Town Monument.
Well, welcome, Laura. Thank you so much for carving time out of your day to listen in. And I'm really excited about today's agenda. But before I dive into that, Jared, please.
Introduce myself is what you're saying. So behind the podium and out of camera view intentionally, Jared Verner, Public Information Officer for the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments.
Fantastic. So I believe that's everyone except Annalise. I don't know how I miss Annalise. She's one of my favorites. Annalise, if you don't mind introducing yourself, please. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Hi, I'm Annalise Tullius, and I am the Administrative Assistant for Innovations in Aging.
Thank you, Annalise. Appreciate it. All right. So we'll go ahead and move right down to the next item here in agenda approval. I believe any modifications or discussion needed for today's agenda? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and consider today's agenda approved and move right on along to consent items. And we will look at May's meeting minutes. Hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to have a look at those. And we'll open the floor up for any discussion, recommended revisions, questions. And if none, we can go ahead and look for a motion to approve.
I will motion.
I'll second.
Who was the first?
Kathy.
Kathy.
I believe that was Kathy.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, that was
Right.
Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Mary. We'll go ahead and all in favor in approving May's meeting minutes. Say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Great. Anyone opposed? Hearing none. Okay. And thank you to the team here in Melissa and Jared, and I think Laura had stepped in last month as well to help us get those meeting minutes together. So just thank you guys for helping us out with that. Next, we'll go over to public comments and presentations, and I'm very, very excited today to reintroduce Erin. She, I'm sure, will do much better job than I can in introducing her in representing Innovations in Aging today, and a little presentation on some of the work that they're doing. So, Erin, with that, I'll give you the floor. Thank you.
For the opportunity to present on innovations in aging and the work that we're doing in Colorado Springs and El Paso County. For those who aren't familiar, Innovations in Aging was formed in 2009 in Colorado Springs and organized into a nonprofit in 2012. It was developed to serve, to improve quality of life for older adults when it was formed in 2009. And in 2012, it was formed into a nonprofit to bring an age-friendly framework to Colorado Springs. Our mission is to convene the community to promote creative approaches that address the challenges and opportunities of aging. And our vision is a livable community for everyone who grows up and grows older with us in the Pikes Peak region. What we do is called Age Friendly. And for those, again, who aren't familiar, Age Friendly is an international framework. It comes from the World Health Organization, and in the United States, it's administered by the AARP. So when a community would like to bring an age-friendly design to their community, we do a community survey. We apply for age-friendly designation from the AARP, and we have 5 years to complete an action plan in our age-friendly community. So our initial work from 2016 to 2021 was Age-Friendly Colorado Springs. And I believe that I always forget if it's 92 or 95% accurate in achieving the action items that we said we would in our first 5 years. And I'm very excited that we have just submitted for our second round of Age-Friendly Colorado Springs, expanding into El Paso County as well. So when we hear back from AARP on that, I'd be happy to share that news. So what Innovations in Aging does is we're the local provider of age-friendly design through a kind of a public-private partnership with the city of Colorado Springs and the county of El Paso County. And what that means is that we're a nonprofit and we help the city and the county, we help governments build their communities to serve older adults according to the age-friendly framework. We collaborate not only with governments, but also community-based organizations to make sure that no one ages out of all the wonderful things that we have to offer in the Pikes Peak region. So we convene the community, we listen to what the needs and opportunities are, we design creative approaches to meet those needs and opportunities, and then we go back in and we see if it's working, if we need to make adjustments, and we start again. Age-friendly Colorado Springs began in 2016. The important part of starting an age-friendly initiative in any community is having buy-in from elected officials. In order to be designated as an age-friendly community, you have to have a letter of support from government leadership in that community. So Mayor John Suthers was the first to bring age-friendly to Colorado Springs. And part of that involved an initial community survey to see what was needed in the city. And for then, as I said, for 5 years, we had our first round of implementation of our age-friendly action plan in Colorado Springs, at which point, when we finished our first 5 years, we decided to bring the work that we had done into El Paso County. So we had the opportunity to do a community survey outside of the city, and I was fortunate to step into this role before the completion of this action plan. So I was so lucky to participate in some of the listening sessions and the work groups, the summit in November of last year, and I have just had the absolute pleasure of watching all of these conversations funnel down into our final action plan. So as we move into our next 5 years, the work that we're doing is not to say that it's serving Pikes Peak region as if Pikes Peak region is one big piece that is all the same. We're specifically focusing on, within our age-friendly Pikes Peak plan, the needs of Colorado Springs as a city and the needs of El Paso County as a county. So it really involves looking at the diverse needs of the different communities in this region and then bringing the best pieces of that action plan to those communities. What we have done in the first 5 years of our age-friendly work listed a lot of pieces of sustainable programs that we have had the opportunity to create in this area. One is the Commission on Aging. So the Commission on Aging came out of the first 5 years of age-friendly Colorado Springs. It was initially a city program and then expanded into the larger region and was brought under the PPACG at that point. Another sustainable program that came out of Innovations in Aging was the Affordable Housing Collaborative that is changing their name, if not already, very soon, to the Pikes Peak Housing Network, which is looking to become a more focused group looking at affordable housing for all ages in the Pikes Peak region. Something that I'm really proud of the work that has come out of Innovations in Aging is our social return on investment. So we had a study done with the National Institute for Social Impact. And what this organization does is they look at dollars that we receive and impact we return to relevant stakeholders in the community. And they found that for our first 5 years, for every dollar that we received at Innovations in Aging, we returned $3.23 of value to the community. And this measurement is really important to the work that we do because sometimes it's hard to see the changes that you make, especially when you're working and systems change and at large levels. So it is wonderful to have this tool to see that we are making an impact not only in lives, but being a good steward of the financial commitments that we receive from government and from grantors. And of course, the human impact. So a lot of the work that we do at Innovations in Aging, we serve governments and we serve community-based organizations mainly. We don't do a lot of one-on-one programming with individual seniors. And so before I came to Innovations in Aging, I was a healthcare provider in long-term care for 15 years. So my day-to-day was one-on-one with older adults. And it is really fun when I do have the opportunity to work one-on-one and see the joy that this kind of work brings to the community. We had an opportunity to, through a grant from the Lida Hill Foundation, provide laptops to low-income seniors living at Myron Stratton Home. And it was smiles every week. It was absolutely wonderful. We brought high school students in and had the high school students teach them how to use their computers. And it was just incredibly joyful. So when we're able to get one-on-one time, it's wonderful. I know we're doing really good work, not only financially, but from the human aspect and what we're doing in El Paso County. So we are just finalizing our action plan. And I think actually I can say that it is completely final now. Final as of Friday last week. So our action plan is ready to go. Just rounding out what it's going to look like to release it into the community. If you're here today, I've provided the executive summary for the action plan for everybody. There are 60 action items to complete over 5 years, and I know we're going to hit every single one of them. It's just hard not to do them all today. So, so for those who are not familiar, the age-friendly framework is based on 8 domains of livability, according to the World Health Organization and filtered through the AARP in the United States. Our first 5 years, we targeted all 8 domains of livability. And for our second action plan, focusing on the wider Pikes Peak region, we made the decision not to focus on all 8, but to focus more with more depth on 5 areas in the 8 domains of livability. So we will be working on housing, health and wellness, age-friendly environment, social communication and connection, and workforce development. And I meant for this slide to say future innovations in aging, not future age-friendly Pikes Peak, because I've really missed the point by having a typo on this slide. When I stepped into this role, I found that the community maybe believed that age-friendly and innovations in aging were separate entities. So as we move into our next 5-year plan, I want it to be very clear that innovations in aging, that age-friendly Pikes Peak is a program of innovations in aging. And the work that we do, it serves the social determinants of health, it serves the age-friendly framework, but Age-Friendly Pikes Peak is a regional program that we are helping to administer in collaboration with governments and other organizations in the community. We have other things that we're working on in the near future, one of which is an innovation plan, looking at bringing age tech to the community, bolstering entrepreneurship and small businesses that intend to serve older adults with intention. Because when we look at 60 action items in the next 5 years, the benefit that we can get in serving older adults through increased efficiency, increased sustainability, increased scalability by using tech and AI is significant. So we're working to build an ecosystem in Southern Colorado that will help bring this type of workforce to our community to serve older adults and to help us achieve our goals over the next 5 years. We're also, although serving the business community, of course, is part of Age-Friendly Pikes Peak, Colorado Springs and Southern Colorado, the business community here, and granted, this is the only business community I've ever served very closely in, but it's very special. And the small business community in Southern Colorado is very close. During the pandemic, our area lost fewer small businesses than any other community our size in the country. And it's because we have such a wonderful network here. So one of the things that we completed in our first 5-year action plan was, in partnership with the Better Business Bureau of Southern Colorado, we created an age-friendly business certification. So we want to focus really intentionally on partnering with the Better Business Bureau, partnering with the Chambers of Commerce, and working to give back to that community, helping older adults connect to workforce opportunities by educating the community about the opportunities of having workforce, I'm going to say opportunity again, but having employment opportunities tailored to the needs of older adults, but also just being a partner with this wonderful group in Southern Colorado. And finally, we moved offices recently, and recently still moving as of today. But we're moving into Cottonwood Center for the Arts, and our work is social determinants of health. It really it aligns with social determinants of health. It's transportation, it's healthcare, it's housing, it's businesses, and being located in this new community in the past 2 weeks has opened up just a whirlwind of conversations about how we can partner with the arts community. And I'm so excited to have a public-facing office where individuals will be walking by, looking at art, coming to First Friday, having conversations with us about what we do. So, although I don't necessarily anticipate having, running art classes through Innovations in Aging, I think the conversation about helping the art community in Southern Colorado develop an age-friendly lens is really wonderful. And finally, for anyone who has not heard my kindergarten chair story, which there are some people in here smiling because they have, my best girlfriends don't work with older adults. And sometimes when I tell them about the work that I do, I feel like I lose them in the conversation. And since I've been in this role since January of this year, when I talk to members of the community, sometimes I feel like I know people don't see themselves connected to this mission very easily always. And so when I share with people about what I do at Innovations in Aging and what we do with Age Friendly, I always use the story of the kindergarten chair because it hits home and it helps, I think, the idea stick really well. And so when people ask me what age friendly is, I say the kindergarten chair is age friendly because kindergarten chairs are small because they're made for small people, because kindergartners are small. And we don't ask a kindergartner to sit in a chair that's built for an 18-year-old man who's about to graduate from high school. And we also don't ask a third grader to call the mayor when his chair is too small because he's gotten bigger. Chairs in an elementary school are age-friendly design. We naturally make them bigger as we age. The first time I went back to my kindergarten classroom, I was shocked how small the chairs were. It had never even occurred to me. So once we graduate from high school, we hang a sign on people that say, "You're an adult now, goodbye forever. This should work for you until you are 80 years old." But 20 is not 80. 20 is not 40, is not 60, is not 80. So what we do in age-friendly design, what we do at Innovations in Aging is we design the community so that no matter how old you are, you don't have to call the mayor and say you can't use the bus because you can't get your walker on it. And you don't have to call the parks department and say you would love to go to the park, but you can't use the sidewalks because they're all cracked up. So that is really what age-friendly design is we want to anticipate the needs of everybody who lives here as they age so that they never have to call and ask for help. Thank you again so much for allowing me the opportunity to present on Innovations in Aging. I love talking to a group of people who are serving older adults in our community. And please reach out at any time if you have any questions. I would love to tell you more about what we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin. Really quick, I just want to give others an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have.
Erin, this is really exciting because, as you know, bringing the commission over to the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging and PPACG with the intention of serving the entire region, which is the 3 counties that we contract under, is really exciting. And being able to look at the age friendly from a broader perspective is also really exciting. My question is based on these, what'd you say, 60 items you've got to work on. I say you, but I know it's not just you. Thank goodness, right? But can you give us a couple of examples of some of the priorities that Age Friendly is going to be working on maybe across the county over the next 5 years?
Yes. I wish that I would have I wish that I would have brought the written down early attack items from the action plan. But we have the 5 work groups, and I know that the housing work group has a lot of energy to get moving right now. So definitely working on housing and definitely working on communication. So communication and social connections. Part of that is digital equity. So what we've done at Myron Stratton with training older adults, providing laptops and training them how to connect with the internet, hoping to have more grant funding to continue working on that and to scale that up and to build a sustainable program for that into the next couple years. And working on our internal communication strategy to make sure that we are keeping the community connected and engaged in this work as part of what we're starting off with as well. I have several grant applications out right now, and depending on what interest there is in those applications, that could direct some of where we go, depending on funding that we receive. And definitely the innovation, the age tech, the age-friendly entrepreneurship. We have applied to present on age tech at Denver Startup Week in September and at Southern Colorado Startup Week, which is the very next week after Denver Startup Week. So engaging with the tech accelerator and the entrepreneurship communities in Southern Colorado. So Exponential Impact, the EPIC program at UCCS, Catalyst Campus, and connecting with those groups to see where our missions overlap and what we can do to support each other in the work we're doing for older adults.
Thank
Yeah.
you. For those who may not be more familiar with this, when that 5-year work is done and you've created those checklists and the completion, how do you or the work teams or perhaps it's part of the partnerships role really continue that work beyond the 5 years? What kind of partnerships are you looking for to be able to enable that moving forward beyond the 5 years?
So some of the action steps that we have in Age Friendly 2.0 are carried over work from 1.0, either because there's more work to be done or there is the next step of work to be done. Part of that is Dementia Friendly Colorado Springs. We have some similar action items that we're going to be expanding on in 2.0. But I think that the work that we do looks to build sustainable models that can live without our constant input to that work. So like the Pikes Peak Housing Network and the work that we did with the Parks Department to build age-friendly parks. Those programs, even though we're not actively still in it in a leadership or convening role, if you will, they can exist after we've sort of planted the seed. And that's something that we looked for when we built the action plan. We want to plant the seed for things that will grow. So I think that is, it's important for a very small organization in the work that we do. I had a conversation with BJ Scott last week, one of our founders, and she said that one of the powers, our secret sauce, if you will, innovations in aging is the collaboration in the community that cares so much. Because once we get the ball rolling, it just rolls. So.
Well, my staff especially know I love the C word. So
Yeah.
thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
And I will throw out, I sit on the board of directors that oversees the funding and the operations of the Dementia Friendly program. So
Oh, wonderful.
you have a resource if you need as you continue that. So
Wonderful.
thank you for
Thank
carrying
you.
that on.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you, Aaron. Yeah, I saw her hand as well. So Kathy, if your question has not yet been answered, please ask.
I don't necessarily have a question. I just wanted to thank Erin for the wonderful work they're doing, but I also wanted to tell her at the state level, the affordable access to age-friendly communities had speakers from Washington Cares and also from Age Friendly Minnesota. So they both have excellent programs that we wanted their input on. And one other thing was the workforce. First, I was on that committee, that subcommittee as well. And first, we wanted to work with the direct care workers, and we were able to get a proclamation passed through Governor Polis. And so now we have a direct care worker week every year. So that was passed. And the third thing is more of a personal matter because I'm disabled and I don't want to say elderly, but I'm considered a senior. And just a personal issue. Most of the dog parks around here are not accessible. And if you're in a wheelchair and you have a service dog, you can't take them to the dog park in many instances. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that because I don't know that dog parks came up in the conversations that we've had, but it's certainly part of the Parks Department and it's certainly part of the age-friendly environment initiative that we're working on. And thank you for the direct care worker week from the state because having very recently left long-term care, a lot of my friends are still direct care workers and they were very grateful for that recognition.
So Erin, this is Melissa, and I was going to save this for after the meeting, but I think I'm just going to ask it now. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah.
The laptop program with Myron Stratton. Do you need volunteers? We received an inquiry from a man who is doing some tech volunteer work, and he was looking for another place to volunteer some of his time. And so as I listened to you talk about that, and I just wondered if you guys are in need of any other volunteers to help with the tech stuff over there. Or maybe you might need him a little bit later, but anyway.
Yes, we should plug him in. Okay. Anytime someone says they want to volunteer, I say, yes, absolutely.
Figure it out,
we will
right?
make that work. Yes.
Yeah.
We are working with the AARP Older Adult Technology Services OATS program.
Okay.
To, as part of hopefully our next round, identify our next round of laptop and digital equity training at Myron Stratton, identify a standard way for teaching older adults how to use these laptops. Because the first round, we figured out what worked and what didn't work. And sometimes it's hard for a high school student to explain how to use a computer because they never really had to learn it because they were born with a laptop in their hands and a phone in their other hand. So I think once we identify what the framework will look like, what the strategies will look like for education, I don't see how we couldn't use that person as a volunteer. That would be wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Right. Thanks everyone for your great questions. And Erin, thank you so much for sharing on the awesome work Innovations in Aging is doing. Oh, go for it, Mary.
Sorry, Dayton.
Sure.
Just so everyone knows, Erin, can you share what's to come? What's next? So we have this age-friendly new framework. What should we expect? How can we get involved? What should we look forward to seeing?
For age-friendly or for innovations in aging in general? Okay. So, there's so much to do, and we do have our priorities. I wish that I had brought them, Jody. That was a very good question, and I can't for the life of me remember which of the 60 was like the next. But I don't want to hold on too tightly to the plan because I think that it's organic and we'll kind of see what sticks and where the momentum is and lean into that in the first couple months of the plan. I do think that housing, like I said, is at the top of the list and social communication and connection is at the top of the list. We are building a new website in the next couple weeks, which should launch at the end of August. And I would love to use that website for work group members and volunteers to find us, plug in, and get moving in the work group that they would choose to serve in. So there will be, I want to take our work kind of on a road show. Now that we have our action plan ready to go, I would love to talk to community leaders and find out how these action items could serve their community. It's kind of hard to say what we will do first, because what Colorado Springs does first will not be what Calhan does first, will not be what Monument does first. So really, we surveyed the community for what their needs were, but now I think communities can use this action plan individually for the pieces that they want to see move early. And in terms of the other pieces, the other areas where we're looking to get working on innovations in aging, we're supposed to hear about Denver Startup Week on Friday. So we'll see how that shakes out, and if that is coming, then that would take some more time and conversation on the part of our organization and our collaborators. So I'm really excited about partnering with the business community and the tech accelerator community in Southern Colorado, because there's a lot of energy there. And when we look at where we're going to start with our next 5 years, part of the conversation we had was we should start where the energy is, and we should start where the opportunities are. And the business community and the tech community are excited about the work that we're doing and the opportunity that we have to work together. So I think there's going to be some activity there in the next 6 months. So, yeah.
Great question, Mary.
Yeah.
Always exciting to hear kind of next steps, what's ahead. And I'll just full disclosure, I have the privilege of working really closely with Erin as the chair of the board of innovations now for a couple of years. And I just love this idea of engaging communities that are not as intuitive whenever you think of the aging population in technology, in entrepreneurship, in art. I think it's an empowering and an asset-based approach that Erin, under your leadership and most newly in this age-friendly plan, is really being carried forward. So I just am so appreciative of that, and I'm very curious to see how these different communities throughout the county embrace the idea of age-friendly and how motivated they are to integrate these ideas of the way that they perceive aging and integrate it within their communities, because the data is all over the place in that there's nothing. We have a lot of aging population here in the county and in our communities. So we have to look to an expert of how can we empower their community to be to convene, have the right people at the table, and collaborate to come up with their solutions. And I feel like Age Friendly and Innovations in Aging has really demonstrated that competency, not only in this first round, but also in this most recent visioning session with over 120 people convened to kind of put together their heads of what we can do as a community here in Colorado Springs. So congratulations on that. And thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Kathy, I seen your hand go up again. Don't be shy. If you have another
I'm
question,
sorry, I
please
just
ask.
tried to
No, you're
wait.
okay.
It's hard for me to wait too, so. I just wanted to say, yeah, Melissa knows that. I just wanted to say that the Colorado State Age-Friendly Affordable Housing meets on the 4th Friday of every month. So this Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. If you're interested, you might want to join us. And that would be great. And I also wanted to say that the Colorado Workforce Committee at the subcommittee is having it already had a portion of a bill passed to remove all age-related questions from applications. So that part passed. The rest is still being debated.
Thank you, Kathy. And I think toward the end of the agenda, there's going to be an opportunity to kind of get some announcements out from what we're seeing in our respective roles, as well as get some key dates out that we might want to, get written down so we could all be apprised and see if we can make it work with our schedule should those meetings be open. But thank you so much for that information. Really appreciate it. All right, Aaron. Well, thank you. You're out of the limelight in the hot seat. Appreciate it. Wonderful presentation. And I'm pretty sure these materials are available digitally or will be. I know this action plan of age-friendly Pikes Peak is especially hot off the presses. So really excited to kind of read through it and see some of the high points out of that. So we'll go ahead and move right over to action items, moving down the agenda. And we will.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Sorry to
No,
interrupt.
you're okay.
I don't think it's an issue, but I just want to make sure we kind of skipped over the public comments portion. So if anyone, we didn't receive any advanced comments through email. We didn't receive any advanced requests for a public comment. If there's anyone online who would like to provide a public comment on any item that's not on the agenda, please raise your hand now. And as I stall for time a little bit.
This is Jody. I have not received requests for public comment either, Mr. Chair.
And seeing no hands raised. Formality, I understand, but we can go forward to action items.
Someone needs to keep me in line, Jared, so I appreciate it. Very good catch. Always want to, and in fact, even going forward, I know that that's been a big topic of ours at the executive committee and this group is how we engage folks in the community to be encouraged and feel confident coming to this meeting, tuning in virtually to give their public comment. So it's certainly an area that we don't want to kind of just skip over.
And as I say that, Kathy has her hand raised.
Go ahead,
I'm
Kathy.
really not trying to monopolize things, but I just wanted to let you know I did email Melissa both the Alan Buckingham Award and the proposal for a rule on the Older American Act. It hasn't been updated for years, so they are looking for people to comment on some of the updates needed. So I had emailed all that to Melissa. So.
And thanks, Kathy. I know that Jody is going to spend a little bit of time talking about the Older Americans Act information here shortly. And I was holding off on the volunteer thing for a little bit until we had a little bit more information. But yes, really, really good things. So stay tuned.
Kathy, you're ahead of the game. So bear with us, and I appreciate you not letting us let things fall through the cracks here. We will go ahead and move to action items in item 5 and officially approve Aaron, who is here with us today, to officially join our commission as recommended. And I believe these materials were shared in advance. If there's any discussion to be had, we could go ahead and have that. Otherwise, we will officially vote that in today.
Yeah. So normally, of course, so this is Jody. Normally, of course, with new members, our member chair would be here to give a little presentation, but since she's not available to be here today, just as a point of background and context, because Innovation in Aging was the founding organization, ultimately through the first age-friendly process that created the Commission on Aging, which was appointed by Mayor Suthers as part of the age-friendly process. That was the '1 action that was taken as part of his signing off on the age-friendly process. In the process of moving the basically decommissioning, I guess, for lack of a better term, the Commission on Aging from the city governance system into the PPACG arena. It was determined to hold a seat for a representative from Innovations in Aging on the board of directors. That has been held by the executive director thus far. And so because there has been a gap And because Aaron is now on and hit the ground running, for sake of consistency with our other appointment processes within the PPACG, we did ask for an appointment letter that is in your board packet, just so we have that formal recognition of the processes. And so Aaron is being appointed to the to hold the position on the board of directors as the executive director of innovations in aging, and recognizing their work to build the Commission on Aging and what we are now today. So that is the action item before you right now under 5A.
All right, all. So I see Jared has the appointment to Commission on Aging for Aaron popped up on the screen there. We also were sent this information in advance. I'll open the floor up for any discussion. Well,
First ask for.
we'll ask for a motion or a second, and then discussion.
Amy Mitchell, I move
would
that we
happily-
accept Aaron as a
I'll
member.
happily second it.
All right, thank you, Amy. Thank you, Kathy. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, we could go to a vote. All in favor of voting Aaron onto the commission? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Great. Welcome to the commission, Aaron. Very exciting. Yeah, couldn't be happier to have anyone else and any other's perspective on some of the work that we have in front of us today and have been working on. So yeah, very excited.
Yeah, and as staff members, we can't vote, but we are very pleased to have you, especially as quickly as you've moved into this role and engaged with the community. So we're really excited to have you as part of the board. Yeah.
All right, moving on here to item 6 and information items, membership committee. And I know Paula is unavailable today, so I could certainly, try to kick us off. And I know Melissa certainly was in our executive meeting where we did talk a little bit more on the membership side of things. So I see Jared has our membership matrix popped up here, and just to kind of acclimate those who have not seen this tool before, we created it with the intention of just having this high level viewpoint of who our group is and the makeup of in terms of representation geographically, expertise wise, and their sort of if applicable, their consumer experience, whether they've have any engagement in any of these systems, professionally or personally, just to have that there too. So with that said, I don't believe there were members kind of on the radar to pursue at this point, other than Aaron. And I know Amy has also joined us on the call. So certainly, haven't lost momentum with the two of them joining us today. Melissa, I see you're like to comment.
Yeah. So I will be getting with Erin and having her identify what kind of areas she might kind of maybe want to pick out one over the other, or we check every single column from innovations in aging. But anyway, we'll get together and look at that. But as I look at this sheet, I know Dayton would be happy to know the column that's gap right now is that risk management, some type of an attorney. And there are some really great attorneys in town and lawyers. And so maybe there's a possibility for finding somebody to join the commission there. And again, we are El Paso Park and Teller County. So an attorney could come from any of those areas. And I'm kind of planting the seed for myself as I think about going and visiting some of our outlying counties in the next couple of months. So thinking about that. And the other kind of, caregiving and transportation, a little shy as well. And so just some opportunities to think about people that might fill some of those categories for us on our Commission on Aging, as well as coming from Park County and Teller County too.
I know Danielle has experience in caregiving, so I don't see any checks under her, but I know her voice is pretty strong in that
And it
way of
looks,
advocating.
yep, it looks like I don't have any checks under her yet. So I need to make sure that I get with her. I thought I had filled that in, so I'll have to double check. So yep, Danielle needs some checks under her name.
Good question, Marion. Yeah, that's definitely shown through in past meetings and in her perspective on that. I'll say kind of 2 words of action today, or proposed action at least, is and Jared, I'm going to put you on the spot in addition to this. If you wouldn't mind popping up the meeting materials that were shared to kind of show where our names fall in those different communities, that's with our agenda. I think that was really enlightening to me to see of some of the representation in Monument, Palmer Park, Callahan. There's certainly some vacant spots needing filling, and we are very concentrated here in Colorado Springs. So I just want to be sensitive to that. And with that said, I have my proposed actions, and I would love to hear others' thoughts on this. Is one, do we have a recruitment tool to kind of say this is, get a flyer out, social media, or what have you, a distribution list to put a message out that we are looking for COA members in these areas. I'd love to get a message out to these communities saying that we're in search of members so that we have representation in those areas. So wanted to kind of throw that out there to see if that's a possibility.
We also do share this is that listing is part of a larger listing that is part of the board of directors packets as well. So they can always go to the back of the list and see. And as opportunity presents it, typically Jared or our executive director, Andy Gunning, will highlight that to remind board members to take a look at the spots that might be available. So that has actually helped and encourage some of our newer board members. And of course, they're all, from all of these municipalities. That's what effectively builds this out. But that has helped bring folks on. Or think of, they walk in different circles than I do. They work in different circles than you do, and so we've had some really great recommendations through that. But that is one way that we get that out here directly.
And we have Amy Smith actually comes to us because of the PPACG current board chair, Mayor Thompson from Fountain actually recommended Amy to the Commission on Aging. So the PPACG board, when it's top of mind, they are able to kind of think to themselves, oh yeah, let me think about that. And then also Laura Cronick, she is of course on the city council in Monument, but she came to us because the PPACG Monument representative kind of brought it to them. And when Laura and I spoke quite a bit at the time, she was more interested in kind of the work around the Regional Advisory Council. But then she's here today listening in again on the Commission on Aging too. So, so it is work. It's a little slow sometimes, but it does kind of come around eventually. So I'm real happy with Amy and also Laura and the work that she's done. So, and Kathy has her hand up.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Kathy, you're muted if you're trying. There you go.
I'm sorry, my hand should not be up.
Something
That
that
was a mistake.
came to mind is, does the AAA offer services or work with agencies who offer services in these areas? And can we somehow connect with those services? Because we've talked about getting people, community members who are ingrained in the community, who are experiencing these problems, to be on the commission so that we really have that perspective. And so if there's somehow we can connect with services who are working in those areas, and then we can give that notification, that may be a good way to intersect the community versus just from our circles.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Mary. This list of towns and municipalities is based on the membership of the PPACG, so that's the starting point for this list. And as you might imagine, there are some of these locations do receive direct services and some may not, specifically from AAA or AAA providers, although they may have access to them, they may not be receiving them. But that's certainly an interesting route to go. So we'll look at how we might build that out.
And to potentially add a little bit of confusion, that there is a difference between those that are appointed by the members and members who are just from those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And so each of our member jurisdictions in the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments has the ability to appoint members on so I'd say very similar to Innovations on Aging. They have a dedicated seat. Innovations on Aging gets to pick who they want on the commission. So it has to go through board approval. Very similar, as jurisdictions have the ability to appoint whoever they choose to this commission, bypassing any membership process that the commission decides to do on its own to try to get geographic parity.
Yeah, so that's where you see the citizens at large portion. Those are private citizens who find out about us, through a variety of sources, and go through an application process, meet with the membership chair, and then that membership chair brings it before you all for voting in. And so there are the private citizens who, maybe they live in Fountain, maybe they live in Rama, maybe they live in Cowhan, representing that area as a citizen versus the appointed positions. And so there's really kind of two resources for us. There's the general communication out that we do on a regular basis, saying there are positions open representing this community. And there's also then the work that we do specifically through our board members to say, Town of Monument, you have a vacant position. You have an opportunity here to appoint someone to represent you, that kind of thing, and therefore bypass the full membership application process. Yeah, so there's kind of two parallel.
Yeah, so I was wondering, can we go through the like more formally through the organizations we know? Like I know Silver Key and is very connected in Calhan and Monument, and it seems like those would be good organizations to do kind of what Mary is saying about, find people that are experiencing the problems that we're talking about and go directly to them through community-based organizations that we already know of. I mean, can we do a formal outreach? Do we have the assets or the documentation or?
Yeah, it's a great question, Stephen. I don't know if we have like an official recruitment verbiage document. Okay. So action items maybe spitting out of this is that we each receive those assets and get those out to folks who are in our Rolodex, who are in mind. And I think, I think that might be a good approach. I'm trying to think of how we avoid kind of fishing from the same pond type of thing, where, one person in the organization received it from me and then another receives it from you, Steve. I don't know. But I think there's a methodical way we could do it, or an organized way we could do it, of just getting the outreach out to these people, like personally, or who we know within our networks in these community-based organizations, and just sending that directly to them. I think there's that aspect. So let's put a pin in that piece as a potential action item. And then the second action item that comes to mind is since the board of directors of PPACG have this in front of them, I'm wondering, and it sounds like they have this information. Is there an opportunity for this commission to say, you know, our goal is to fill at least 3 of these vacant spots to have representation by the end of Q4? And because I've been talking to Paula about developing goals for that committee whenever it comes to membership.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think this is something we would have to bring up to either the executive committee or definitely to our executive director and how to manage that outreach. Because it is highlighted on an occasional basis as we either have new board members to make sure that they're aware of this part of the packet. You know, their board packet's almost 200 pages most times. So we we realize they may not get, especially our new members may not get, new board members may not get all the way through those. So, but yeah, Jared, let you and me talk about what that would look like to make sure that we're highlighting those needs, because ultimately, you know, this is effectively the same. You know, this list isn't just the Commission on Aging openings at the end of the board packet. It's all of the boards that are part of PPACG, and there are 7, I think, some such. They all have openings, and that's something that we encourage our board members to review on a regular basis to see if they have someone who, you know, would qualify and be able to provide good input. Be good members for that reason. So the only other thing that we typically ask is if someone is interested in joining one of our boards or commissions, that they sit in on at least 1, maybe 2 meetings as part of their application process. So they know who you are, they know what they're getting into. And for our intents and purposes, because we have 2 separate boards under the Area Agency on Aging, is understanding that differentiation in where they feel they can lend their strengths best. So
I would just add that back to when Steve brought up, you know, is it possible to reach out through Silver Key to connect with Monument and kind of Calhan area? You know, think about what is the area of of expertise or experience that we would want to see come to the table. And so, you know, for example, and I think we have to think bigger than this, but it's the first thing that comes to my mind, you know, transportation, Invita, Calhan, right? And so maybe there's a possibility of, you know, somebody from Invita coming on the Commission on Aging because they've been doing some really innovative transportation out in Calhan for the last couple of years. And so, you know, just kind of keep digging a little deeper. So yes, let's go talk to someone at Silver Key, but what do we want to talk to them about? And, you know, let's talk to, you know, the senior center up there in Monument and think about maybe a caregiving perspective. And again, I think ideally it would be great if there are council commission members who would want to have that face-to-face meeting with that person at the senior center in Monument and talk about the possibility of, do they know anybody who is really passionate about caregiving and they might want to come on to the Commission on Aging? This is the work we're doing. Ideally, it would be great if there is a commissioner who wants to do that. We do have a membership chair who can do that work as well. I can do that as well, but I also just think it really means a lot when we actually have the commissioners doing it, or maybe it's a pairing up, so to speak. But I think we can continue that conversation with Paula at the executive committee level, but just kind of think a little deeper again about if you do the outreach, why do we want that person to come? You know, if we do outreach, I'm going to be in Cripple Creek tomorrow. And so as I'm in Cripple Creek, I'm thinking to myself, maybe there's an opportunity to say to somebody something along the lines of veterans or caregiving or transportation. or maybe even legal. So I can bring that up tomorrow in Cripple Creek, but, just kind of keep that going. And Mary, you were thinking that,
Well, I know Sue pretty well from the senior center there. I can reach out, and then Haley with Tri-Lakes Cares may be another good person. She may have a staff who want to represent, since they really service all population demographics. I don't know Haley that well though, but I know Sue, so I'll reach out to Sue.
Great. I see Kathy has had her hand up. Go ahead, Kathy. And Jared, after that, maybe you could read Laura's comment.
I just wanted to say I work for Silver Key one afternoon a week, and I ride the Silver Key bus to Silver Key. So I can definitely talk to them. And also there's the person that runs the companionship program. I'm working kind of as the volunteer, what is she called? The volunteer chair. So I'm working in all the different areas just to kind of get to know all the different areas.
And really quickly, just in response to Melissa and now your involvement, Kathy, I think once we as commissioners and then have our recruiter hat on, have those assets, we'll doesn't hurt to get the information out, because regardless of those people showing extreme interest or not, there's a process to it. So the bigger the pool, the better, of people who are expressing interest and going through the process. If they don't fit this box that are, ideal, then the process will naturally do what it needs to do. But I think the wider we cast this net, and as long as we have these assets and speaking the same language as we recruit of what we do, what we're aiming to do, I think that's a really good approach. And Jared, I'll hand it back to you to read Laura's comment.
Not a problem. Laura, she put in the chat, by the way, I'm on the board of Silver Key and chair the advisory committee at Tri-Lake Senior Center. Let me know what or how you'd like me to address.
So we are well plugged into Silver Key. Yeah, I think again, it's really us having that same sheet of music, literally, of the recruitment documents and assets that we could give to folks who, we have this matrix in front of us. So using our best judgment in the details that are on that, in addition to those sort of geographic details that we have in front of us as well. So I would encourage, once we all get those assets, that we use them, and maybe next time we convene, we'll have some names involved, some names to discuss.
and a reminder to be thinking about people who are over 60. So we do have a requirement that we need to have so many individuals over 60. And right now we are not meeting that. So definitely always a goal to bring those folks to the table.
Excellent. Great conversation on membership. So just to kind of recap, the assets will be sent out to commissioners, so we're all equipped with those, with that information. And Jody, it sounded like you and Jared will connect a little bit to explore what talking with the board might look like. Thank you, Sarah. All right. We'll go ahead and move over to item 6B here in the policy committee. And Amy, Commissioner Mitchell has been wearing dual hats for us in that role as our vice chair and our person to keep us informed from the Colorado Center for Aging perspective. So if you don't mind, Amy, any comments there or updates in that area?
I don't. Thank you. I was on vacation last week, so I missed the meeting they had last week. We will convene in another 2 weeks. Last week was mainly just discussion about the wins on the legislation that was passed and signed. We are then going to start working on issues for what do we need to work on for 2024. So I will come prepared with a list of what we discuss, and I'm happy to bring any of our ideas to them to hash out what focus we want to do on legislative work for next year. I know that the job applications, loss of some of the age questions that would allow someone to discriminate based on age was a really good win. I know it was a partial win. So I think that's going to be looked at and what we need to do to continue that work. And then there's other efforts that didn't make it across the finish line this year. So any ideas, send me an email and I'll float them out and see where we stand so we can help with the Colorado. They can help us push legislation because they've got really good tie-ins. So that's about all I have. Sorry, I was on a motorcycle ride for a week last week and I let all of my responsibilities go.
No apologies necessary, Amy. I well deserved, and yeah, certainly looking forward to next time we talk about this part from hearing from you. So with that, Kathy, I see your hand up. Go for it.
Oh my gosh. So I know the increasing access was signed into law and the public guardianship was signed into law. The nursing facility rate is not signed yet, but it's up before debate in the Senate right now.
Thanks for that, Kathy. I didn't have an idea of that, and I'm sure it's certainly on the radar of the PPACG Legislative Committee. But thank you for that information, Kathy. Just for my own knowledge, are you also sitting on the Colorado Center for Aging sessions or groups?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm
Great
on
resource.
3 subcommittees.
Wonderful. I think you got me beating hats at this point. So with that, and Kathy, maybe we could talk offline, but if we could talk more about your leadership on the policy committee alongside Amy, that I would love to have that conversation with you since you're involved with that group. Okay, so
that's fine.
thank you. Okay, so we can go ahead and move right along here to 6C. And Jody?
So I'm actually going to ask Jared to jump in on this and see if there's any last minute legislative updates. I will note that those several of those that Kathy mentioned were also supported by our board of directors and then ultimately through our lobbyist on Capitol Hill. So that is very exciting to hear that the final votes or final signing is either done or in process. So.
And I can jump in a little bit. So the last day for the governor to sign bills was June 8th, I believe, if I'm going off memory correctly. And so for Colorado, it's a little bit different than federal, whereas if the president doesn't sign it, it's considered a pocket veto. In Colorado, if the governor doesn't sign it, still becomes law. So that was essentially his deadline to veto anything. So I know right now the General Assembly is in what's called the interim schedule right now, where they're just basically doing hearings and a lot of research and fact finding up until the session starts next year. I will say PPACG is very much already kind of focusing on next year. So in terms of actual bills updates, I don't have a whole lot from when we met last time, since that was after the session was concluded.
Thank you, sir. And in terms of when sessions end, begin, I'm curious how we can be more informed on that, so we could have that sort of, I guess, timelines in front of us. I know we can't respond as quickly as needed, because I know things move fast and furious in that world for sure. But as a contextual piece of information, I think it's an important one as we kind of prioritize and plan for whatever we're planning around. And so let me know how how can we get that information more, I guess, in front of us, for lack of a better word?
So I don't have the top of my head when next year's session is scheduled to start. They're supposed to set that before this last session ended. So I'm sure it's out there. I just don't know. Usually first or second week of January, and then they have 120 days to get it all done. And at 120 days, if it's not done, it's not done. As we saw during this past session, this was the first time I think they had one Sunday session, and I want to say like since the 60s, and they had two of them. Either the first time ever or the first time in a very long time they had two Sunday sessions. I was checking in that Sunday because I think the session ended on Tuesday this year. That Sunday before, I think they were going to 11 o'clock midnight, and that was the same for that Saturday. And so to the point, things move quickly. I remember that Monday, I was just along for the ride at that point. Whatever is gonna happen is gonna happen. We'll just catch up at the end. But now is the time, I know on the PPACG side, we start looking at policy. We start looking at trying to figure out which legislators are interested in which bills they're going to run for the upcoming year. So at this point, it's very much a planning and trying to get an idea of among our local delegation who's planning to take on which bills. The benefit for this upcoming session is that it's the exact same people as last year. So we don't have an election this fall that we have to learn new legislators and try to do that mad scramble from middle November to middle of January to figure out where they land. But yeah, right now it's very much in that planning phase, and then just truly trying to figure out what happens and which legislators are planning to do what. But like I said, this past session, I think, was unique. I have not historically followed the State House as closely as I have in this job. But even from our lobbyist, I think he was like, wow, that was a unique session. And I think we're expecting more of the same for this upcoming session. So buckle up.
And Dayton, we do have our kind of annual planning calendar for the Commission on Aging. So we have some dates and timelines on there. We can always be revisiting that in the executive committee to kind of add more detail or put some other pieces in there. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, let's make that a regular thing during our executive committees. That's a wonderful idea, Melissa. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Steve. I'd like to stay involved if we could, just or get that, I think what you're talking about, early line of sight to the priorities that are going to be pushed through the legislator or legislation, and see if there's opportunities for us to either, sort of like help contribute comment, or just make sure that we're using those as additional priorities for us to focus on.
So I will say, and Jody might have a little bit better insight since I'm closing in on 1 year, so I'm getting my feet wet on what the annual cycle is. The board will start looking at its legislative themes probably in August, September, and really start trying to nail those down. I would say no later than November, if not by October. And so that legislative document in last year's, I've got copies in my office if anyone's interested to see what last year's was. Affordable housing, specifically senior housing, was one of them for this past session. But then as we start working with legislators to see where their passion areas lie, and where, who could be a potential sponsor, who could potentially help run a bill in the State House. That's a little bit more, that's a little bit separate from the legislative priorities document that the bill adopts or the board adopts. But I will also kind of just say the legislative committee, those meetings, just like these, are open to the public. And so it's not a problem for any commission member to sit in and listen on those. You typically once a month in January, February, I think go twice a month in March, and then weekly April through the end of the session, with the possibility of a Thursday one thrown in there for good measure, just to try to keep up with everything. So as things, as things happen, they kind of take July off, and then August they'll start drafting those priorities for adoption in either September, October, well, November at the latest.
It really is a great opportunity, if that's something that you wanted to sit in and listen to the process, because the priorities document that Jared's referring to, there's typically 3 or 4, and they're very broad. They're not specific bills. They are contextual priorities like senior housing, not a specific bill that we're tracking or following. And so this is something that, in fact, that piece is something that we share directly with our legislators in Denver, so that they know who we are and what our priorities are and where those might align with theirs. So I would say that as the meetings get started, we'll make sure that you all have that information. And again, when they actually get to the voting, it can happen very, very fast. And there have been times when I've walked in at 8 o'clock in the morning and there's someone standing at my door saying, "Can you be online or can you drive to Denver today to testify?" And so sometimes it can move that quickly. We just don't know when that's going to be. I've blocked entire afternoons, told it we're going to be the fourth thing on the agenda. Oh, no, two other things dropped off. You're going to be the first thing on the agenda. It's just a madhouse. It really is. So, but as much as we can, we want to make sure that you all have that information and are hearing it as fast as we can. So, to the extent that we can do that, at the very minimum, we'll get you on the cycle. So, and the call-in information, because we do it combined, both online and in the office upstairs in our conference room for those legislative meetings.
All amazing information. And I'll say, just connecting the dots here from our previous conversation with membership committee is we were being really intentional around these like lived experienced folks who we're recruiting onto the commission. We have folks in our existing group today that have these different types of expertise. And I know we've talked about commissioners having the ability to engage folks to participate in the testimonial process. So I think that's certainly on our radar. And if we have that information, if we're equipped with that information, whether it be broad strokes or not, we can, just be on standby and figure a way of how we could be, we ourselves as commissioners or volunteers who are passionate about those particular topics to be on standby to do that.
And we did, we put that out for a couple, and we did have a couple of members of our regional advisory council who came on. One had time to who actually scheduled or applied to testify. And she was very nervous. She'd never done that before, and I never think of this person as being nervous. A nervous speaker was Dr. B. Babbitt. I mean, she's she can pull it out there, really quick and really easy, and you'd never know. But she was just a nervous wreck. And I said, "You're going to get 2 minutes. Think of what you need to say in 2 minutes. That's it. 2 minutes. You don't have to know it all. You just have to make sure that you are showing that you are a voice and an advocate for senior services in your region and why that's important." So you don't have to be that's the beauty of testifying, is you don't have to be an expert. The people in front of you or behind you might be from the Bell Policy Center, but you know what? They only get 2 minutes too. So think of it that way. Just the presence, being present is what is crucial to that point. So.
And circling back to sitting in on the PPACG legislative committee and listening in on what happens there, that's where, the Commission on Aging has its legislative committee that really has not been too active this past year. And so for new commissioners and seasoned commissioners as well, people could be thinking about if they wanted to be a part of that committee, and we can be looking at trying to have that be more active. And that might be a goal that we have for this coming year. Basically, Amy is kind of the ad hoc with that, Amy Mitchell, because she attends the CCA meetings, pretty regularly and kind of stepped into that role. And then, of course, Dayton just reminded Kathy that she might be interested in being on that legislative committee. And so I just put it out there for commissioners to be thinking about if that's something of interest, because then that is where a commissioner could attend the PPACG meeting on a regular basis. And that would be the person who's kind of representing the commission at that level at that meeting. So we can be thinking about that going forward, potentially even having them attend as early as August if we have people stepping up and wanting to do that. So keep that in mind.
Thank you, Melissa. And Jared, any other comments for us?
I'm good. I'm just standing up here in case I need to stand up, answer anything else. But
you just love the limelight. Anyone have any questions? I see Kathy's hand up, actually. Kathy.
I just wanted to say that the public policy next meeting is July 10th, and it's usually from 3 to 4. And the two senators that I've seen that are the most supportive are Senator Janal, and she's very interested in topics that have disability involved. She's very friendly, and Senator Young. They're the two that I've seen the most involved.
Thank you for that insight, Kathy. All right, all. We'll go ahead and keep moving along here. And 6D, Jody, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you. All right. Well, there is just a lot going on. I will share a couple of things specific to the PPACG board items. At this last meeting, they signed a proclamation recognizing World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, which is typically June 15th. However, we asked them to proclaim all of June because instead of just a single recognition event on June 15th, our Budsman team and the rest of the committee for World Elder Abuse Awareness Day spread out and really kind of took the World Elder Abuse conversation on the road across the county. And so they were in Monument, they were in Calhoun, Colorado Springs. Next week, oh, thank you. There's a photo of the proclamation. Thank you, Jared. We also had, they'll also have a group of residents. So there will be resident council meeting held here in this room next week as part of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And so we had our Family Caregiver Support Center director, Kent Matthews, spoke at one. We had Dr. Gloria Sherry Gass, I was going to say some different doctor. Dr. Sherry Gibson was one of the presenters out in Calhoun, and the presentation in Calhoun turned into some immediate action items. And so she and their Mayor Pro Tem Gardine are going to be turning right around and establishing some conversations out there for folks. And so it was really good to see that the conversation was strong enough that they could move right into action. And so there'll be more going on out there. But yeah, just really excited. We also had, you can see there, folks across the photograph. There we have members of the staff from the county with Adult Protective Services, who, as you might imagine, our ombudsman work with very closely. And so other members of our board there as well. So very exciting that they issued that proclamation and recognized that there were opportunities for discussion, not just from our regional ombudsman there in front of me holding the proclamation with me, but also members of the board of directors who recognize the need for this education and understanding. And so that was just a really great opportunity. I will say over the last 2 to 3 years, we have seen an increase in recognition of aging issues and desire for support from our board of directors. And so it's really good when we have these on the agenda that they want to be engaged in the process and be engaged in helping support and find solutions for our community. So they're a really great board to board of directors to work for. So yeah, so that was one item. The other item at this last board of directors meeting, specifically on the aging side, was the final approval excuse me, final approval of the American Rescue Plan Act funding distribution. American Rescue Plan Act, many of you have probably seen that in the newspaper and on the news and things like that. It was distributed across states, counties, and other jurisdictions across the United States. We're very fortunate that a portion was carved out specifically to be distributed through our federal administrators, which is the Administration on Community Living, specifically for infrastructure and capital growth around senior services. That is incredibly unusual because every dollar we receive is for administration of or to go to direct services. Our grants through the Older Americans Act and the Older Coloradans Act, so both federal and state, are specific to programs. And so when we really consider, how do we grow a program if we don't have the infrastructure, if we don't have capital growth, it really becomes a moot point because you can't do one without the other, right? We're really excited to receive these ARPA funds because it's broad-based, it's multi-year, which is again very unusual. Every penny we receive into our programs are limited by their state or federal fiscal year, and so these funds had to be allocated by September of 24. Done. They have to be spent by September 30th of 2026, and we expect most of the projects that these funds will go towards will actually likely be finished by the first deadline, the allocation deadline. And so there was really there was a lot of tense moments over the last month and a half as the debt ceiling conversations were happening at the federal level, because there was very strong conversation about pulling back unallocated federal emergency funding. But it was not part of the funding to help alleviate the debt ceiling, and therefore the funds remained intact. We did allocate 100% of the funds, so that's really exciting because that was also a part of the concern that if we had a balance in our allocation, that even that balance might be withdrawn. And so we were able to allocate a little over $1.8 million into the community. And so some of the projects include everything from food distribution vehicles to and those of you who might live in the northern part of El Paso County are going to be excited about this, but pickleball courts in Palmer Lake. So yeah, I clap and there's clapping the other side of the room. But really, when you think of it, I've had people give me kind of a funny look when I talk about the pickleball courts, but you really think about it. Big part that we've dealt with across COVID, but we've always known it. I mean, that's why the Older Americans Act was written, was to reduce social isolation, to get people engaged in their community, get people engaged with their neighborhoods. The organization that submitted this application has done a lot as a nonprofit for that community in northern Colorado, northern El Paso County, excuse me, in that Palmer Lake area. And when you really get down to it, we're reducing social isolation. We're getting people engaged in their community. All opportunities for older adults will be at no cost. They're also making it fully ADA accessible, and ADA accessible restrooms are part of the project. And so we're very excited that we had 10 applicants. 8 of those are current contracted providers. We did launch this as a region-wide notice of funding availability, so it was not limited to just our current contracted providers. And we had 2 outside providers who applied. Every single project was 100% fully fully funded, except for a $600 carve out we had to make for an invalid request. No big deal. It worked out. But we were very excited to be able to get those monies out in the community, because the other side of that, just from an economic standpoint, is that to complete these projects, there'll be an additional $10 million spent across the community as part of the match and the rest of the projects. Because our projects, it's not it's not just the portion that's going to Palmer Lake organization for their for these courts, for example, but all the other services that have to be paid out. We only paid a small portion of their project, and the same holds true for all the other projects. We're paying just portions of their projects, not 100% of their projects. And so the economic benefit on this for the region is just phenomenal, because of our 1.8 added to another 10 million brings a lot of work to the region. And so that's really good as well. So
Hey, Jody,
that's very exciting. Yes.
is there a list that we can see of where all that funding is allocated to?
Yes, in fact, Jared could probably pull it up faster than I can. That is part of our public record now, because it was listed and approved by the board of directors at the last board meeting. So Jared, if you wouldn't mind pulling that up. And I can highlight a couple others as well.
Well, that's pretty impressive if the money had to be allocated a year from now, but you're already good. Go ahead.
We're already 100% allocated. All right, so top of the list there, because it is just alphabetically, Awake the Lake is the nonprofit organization that helps support special projects. But you can see their overall, that's the pickleball courts and restrooms project. The overall cost of that project is $430,200, and their request to us was for $266,000. Now, keep in mind, every one of these projects also includes a 10% match requirement, and all of them, as you can see, will fully meet that match, if not more. Community Caring, that's a division of the Aspen Mine Center up in Cripple Creek. They were provided a new building space donated to them by, I believe it was Bronco Billy's. And so they're going to grow out a senior activity center, also provide some IT, effectively, they've called it infrastructure here. It's effectively IT support for their senior advocacy program. And then you can see where we allocated actually a little bit extra funding for their food distribution vehicle. They had requested $13,500. That was for a used vehicle. We took the balance, which was around $14,000, and added that to give them, to increase their allocation to $28,172. We figured let's get something maybe even a little newer. Disability Services, most of you know them as Invita, requesting a vehicle as well as security cameras, and then the procurement of those cameras and installation. Those security cameras are actually interior vehicle cameras. They are not allowed to put anything outside because they're in a shared parking area at their office. So they have interior security cameras. That's not for theft prevention. That's for internal security, driver rider security. The other outside applicant was Greshio Housing. They are working on their Shiloh Mesa property, which is fairly brand new, and needed to show that they would be able to procure a van for their property. So we're very excited to be able to help them with that. They have current properties that need a lot of work being done, and they have the rest of their funding. They asked us for a portion of that, but they have the rest of that already allocated. So we're glad to be able to make them whole. Yes. Oh, thank you. Centerpoint Apartments is a new property that's going in near their main office. And again, they have secured most of the funding, and we were able to help with that balance. Eyesight Connections, again, technology expansion. That's one of our current providers, and they are building out a computer training lab. And so you'll probably want to hear about this more, Dayton, but they're going to be working with Peak Vista for shared space and training those with low vision or blind folks to learn technology. Licensed Dental Hygiene Care is one of our current providers. Because of the senior center rebuild, they've had to move, and so they've bought a building. We're going to help them buy a building of their own. And they are also doing some renovations. You can see that number 3 really is for access and collaborations across the community. They're already bringing in several other senior service providers, which is their goal, to expand that building and have all senior service providers. So if you know of anyone who's looking for space, office space, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to put you in touch with them. But they're also looking at educational opportunities. So potentially reserving a portion of their space that other organizations can come in and have public education opportunities. New Vision is another one of our low vision organizations that we currently contract with, and she is moving into that building. And so these ADA bathroom and facilities construction and remodel will all go towards making that space appropriate for her group, because they provide hands-on real life training. So they will have a stove, they'll have a kitchen, they'll have bathrooms, they'll have all the facilities so that folks who are losing their vision or who are blind can learn how to provide for themselves independently. And then Silver Key Senior Services, you can see there we have Transportation Collaborative with some new software to include. This is one of those collaborative efforts, another collaborative effort with Disability Services and Fountain Valley Senior Center. They also have hosted NAMI and are doing some reconstruction to increase their space, and then also growing out their IT infrastructure. So all told, at the bottom, we were able to distribute all $1.8 million dollars. So the total award from ACL was 2,345, and you can see the contract amount for distribution was 1.818798, and we were able to allocate all of that. Those contracts actually went out today, and I've been watching. I apologize for those of you who think I'm taking notes. I'm not. I'm working. Contracts have been going out today to get those secure so that we can have a July 1 start date for all of these projects. So we are really excited about this because, as I mentioned, our funding doesn't usually get to be used for this kind of thing. We also have Teller Senior Coalition. I apologize, I skipped over Teller Senior Coalition. You can see some expansion of some of their services and IT, and their growth in their programs has just been phenomenal. They really didn't have a food distribution program before COVID. We bought them. We were able to buy them shelves, and now they're needing to look for freezers and things like that. So some just really practical things that we sometimes can't do with our funding. And then also YMCA, the Pikes Peak region, that's the contracted name for the Colorado Springs Senior Center. Despite their tear down and imminent move, they are still going to be providing services across the YMCA system. Therefore, we are helping them with some IT infrastructure to be able to have their staff located all throughout the YMCA system. And so we're still able to support that. So I am going to call that done. One quick note, I will not be here at the next meeting in July. I am both a board member and serving on 3 panels at the National U.S. Aging Conference in July. And so I will not be here. But I know Melissa and others will be able to step in on my stead, and I'll provide any update per usual. So, all right. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you, Jody. And what incredible work of and seeing those resources go to things that are not typically funded, and uh, they just going toward things like iPads and office chairs and IT infrastructure. I think those things are just so overlooked typically by funders, of just an absolute need to remain successful for a lot of those organizations. So amazing stuff. So thanks for sharing
You
that,
bet.
Jody.
One last thing. I had it up here on my laptop. Senator McCluskey, who is now part of her district is at the State House, is El Paso, Summit, and I believe Lake counties. Has been working with AAA directors from those three counties. She wants to put together a senior town hall. And so as we get more details, I will be sharing those out with you, because not only would it be important for both our RAC and the commission members to be participate in that, but also to invite your networks to that, because she wants to hear more in person from the individuals, not just providers and not just AAAs and that kind of thing. And so as we get more details, I'll be sharing that out as well.
Thank you, sir. So we'll move pretty fast through these. Chair report wise, just I have a breakdown which I'll share after this to be sent out in the way that I'm kind of templating these reports to look. It's essentially a breakout of what our internal focuses are and goals as a commission, and what are those prospective sort of external goals of the commission could look like in the outline there. Internally, just again, I want to recognize some of the tools that we've been able to put together, as well as the tangibles, including the COA principles of engagement that are on all of our agendas, the membership matrix that we've talked about today, the prioritization tool and questionnaire, which we're going to briefly look at. I don't think we'll actually have time. And then data repository. So certainly some tangibles spinning out of our initial strategic planning meeting. I see those as being real foundational tools for this commission that could really set it up for success now and in the future years. Membership committee, like I'd said, talking with Paula a little bit about what some goals are, whether it be filling 3 of those vacant spots and to be more geographically representative by Q4. Policy committee, just kind of thinking off the top of my head, because it has been a little shaky in terms of membership, and Amy being so gracious of stepping in that role for us, of aiming for having at least 3 members on that committee that helps us really be apprised and ask the right questions whenever it comes to policy and legislative occurrences. So those are just some really high level goals internally that I'm focused in on as chair, and looking forward to continue those conversations to get a little bit more concrete in the executive committee. Moving on to the strategic planning piece. Again, I don't think we're going to have time to get into the target system change areas, but to give context and a little bit of homework to this group is that idea of external goals, really getting tangible goals in front of us, and leveraging the CASOA data, which is a full-fledged effort and just so fruitful in information. I actually went through it, a 208-page document, and highlighted some of the things, high-level points that I think can really give us some guidance on making a difference. It would just be a matter of us prioritizing the area and seeing how can we affect change in those areas so that it can show in the following CASOA in percentage. So I think even in the CASOA report, which is linked here, homework is read that, come prepared next meeting to talk more about it. There are percentages in there that you can really see from this 4-year CASOA document to next time it's done. We could see the change that this group can have or not have on those areas. So my hope is that we're able to use this data, put it through this prioritization process that we've been talking about over these past several months, and then begin to formulate a strategic plan that coincides with the CASOA so that we can really get a pre and post look at some of these percentages at a systems wide level. So that is item A there in the strategic planning. The 7B, which we have 4 minutes. I know last time when we talked about the questionnaire, we all gave input. The idea is to solicit input from folks who are looking to give us information and really tell us how they want to use COA as a resource to make a difference. And so this is a tool for the public to, give us that information that is top of mind for them. And during the executive committee, we took all the feedback, we reformulated some of the questions, we put some of our do's and don'ts of the commission, and this is what we've come up with. So we could briefly skim it and get any sort of high level comments or questions on it, and we could revisit it next meeting.
And Dayton, I'd like to add, this is where I think the executive committee, when we meet, so if anyone wants to attend that meeting, let me know and we can get you invited. But possibly this is where we can take some information that Jody has and Kathy alluded to in terms of the Older Americans Act and working on it, that we might literally take some of the high interest areas and as an executive committee kind of plug it into here, looking at the CSOA, and then be able to bring that back to the commission next month as possible target areas for us to really take some action. So that would be my recommendation, since we don't have time to do that today, that the executive committee can work on that a little bit and really be playing with this document and trying it out.
And we can send you the link to the notice of proposed rulemaking. That's the Older Americans Act regulations that Kathy was talking about. And of course, the Older Americans Act is what drives all of our programming and our funding and that kind of thing. But there's a 2-pager which narrows down what that's about. So we can get that link out to you so you don't have to read through the whole thing. We will be working with both our state and federal advocates to come up with a response because it is due in less than 60 days.
Thank you, Jody, and we'll certainly look out for that resource. Melissa, I think that that approach is definitely warranted. With that said, I still encourage everyone in the call, all commissioners, to review that 4-year plan. You don't really have to read it too in depth since it's 208 pages, but there are some really cool statistics in there. I would actually draw I could make a recommendation on some pages that I would like the group to look at to draw your attention to, so you're not having to really dig deep into the data, into the narrative of it. Since I've kind of taken the liberty to do that. So I will share that after this with Melissa and Jared so that we have some attention to some certain spots of this large document.
And there is a summary, the kind of blueprint summary of action with the 4-year plan that was included in the packet that was sent out. So there is a real summary there, but I do value everyone taking their own time to really read into serious depth if they want to as well.
Yeah, I think since it is going to be a foundational part of the change that we're trying to make, we have to have an understanding of the methodology, some of those aspects of it, but most certainly of how we anticipate, if a question is being asked around transportation and 60% of people are saying that they're unhappy with it or it's unsatisfactory in their community. How is that tracked? What did that say, and how can we make impact on that? I think those are things that we have to have a pretty strong understanding for, especially given our prioritization tool of including, can we really make a difference in that area? We don't know if we could really make a difference in that area. So yeah, I'll in addition to that blueprint send some of those places where I recommend the commission to have a look. Lastly, quarterly plan for PPACG public comment. And Melissa, I don't know if if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so what the executive committee kind of talked about was literally, as Dayton mentions, having some goals that really, as the commission, we've talked a lot about getting an opportunity to get in front of the PPACG board. And so one of the ways that we thought would be a good way to do that is just to literally look at the calendar and look at the third quarter and the fourth quarter and say to ourselves, let's try to make sure we can get on the PPACG board meeting, possibly in September, and be, have some content and be ready to present some good content to the PPACG board. So if we put that on our calendar as a commission, that'll help us make sure that we're doing the work and we're staying on track to meet some of our targeted goals. And so the executive committee probably will decide ideally what date, what month we'd like to try to target. So it might be September for the third quarter, and then it might be, November, December for the fourth quarter, and then run that through Andy or through Jody and Andy to get it on the radar, but for the commission to be ready and present some really good information and be strategic about it. So that was what that was referring to.
And I'll just throw in there for September specifically, we're going to be crashing with Commissioner Mitchell, as that meeting would be up in Fairplay, or at least in Park County somewhere. But
very nice. Thank you, Melissa. Appreciate
this
you.
is Amy. Most likely it will be at our county building because I don't think we have any other location large enough outside of our county building.
that was my assumption too, but I don't think it's been settled yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Jared. Okay, so any follow-up items quickly on that, Melissa? Okay. All right. Item 8, discussion items. There's nothing on the agenda, but want to open the floor up quickly.
This is Kathy. I just wanted to say that the state commission is having their meeting in Colorado Springs in September. I believe it's at Garden of the Gods, if I remember correctly, but I can update you on that as I get more information.
Yeah, Kathy, if you wouldn't mind sharing that with Melissa or Jared, and we could get that on our radar, that'd be very much appreciated. I wouldn't mind personally to take a trip over to Garden of the Gods for talking about a subject that I love. So thank you for that. Over to member entity announcements. Does anyone have any announcements they'd like to share?
One other thing, the Allen Baldwin Award is an award for volunteers, and the state gives it, and they haven't had any submissions as of a week ago. So I don't know if that's changed.
Kathy, would you ask Adrian to send that to me, and I'd be happy to, Melissa and I can send that out through our networks here. I haven't seen that nomination request.
Yeah, and
You have one?
I already sent
Okay.
it to Melissa.
Okay,
and
great,
I also sent
great.
it to Silver Key.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, we can distribute that through our network because so many of our providers use volunteers, so that's great.
Any other announcements? Great. All right, the meeting schedules are on the agenda, and items for next meeting. I have all the confidence in the world in Jared and Melissa in their note taking. They do a wonderful job on keeping us accountable on that. And lastly, I'll just end by again, thank you, Aaron, for joining us, and big welcome to you. And Amy Smith, thank you so much for sitting in today. And I hope to see you in future meetings as well. So thanks everyone on the call, and thanks everyone in the room for taking the time for this really important mission and topic. Have a great evening. We'll go ahead and adjourn.